Support comes from Hampton Roads Community Foundation, partnering with donors from all walks of life to improve southeastern Virginia through grants, scholarships, and leadership initiatives. Learn more at hamptonroadscf.org.
Support comes from Thomas Nelson Community College, now becoming Virginia Peninsula Community College, the first choice, whether starting your bachelor's degree or advancing your career. More at tncc.edu.
Hello, everyone. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. It can affect any child of any race, but for African American and Latinx children, parents may be more likely told your child just behaves badly instead of your child may have ASD. ASD, Autism Spectrum Disorder, is a developmental disability that can cause significant social, communication, and behavioral challenges. Up next on Another View, one mother's advocacy for her son who has autism and why many autistic Black children miss out on the help they need. Come meet Drayden. That's next on Another View after this national, regional, and local news from NPR and WHRO News.
Discussing today's topics from an African American perspective, this is Another View.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Another View. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. We are 1 week away from our next Race Let's Talk About It town hall. The topic, the education gap between Black and white students, and what we as a community and as a society can do to bridge the gap. The town hall is virtual on Thursday, February 10th at 6:30 p.m. We need you to register to attend and receive the link to the virtual forum. Go to whro.org/events and sign up. It's free and everyone is welcome. This virtual town hall is a part of the Beneath the Surface grant received by WHRO Public Media. In full disclosure, I am a member of the Beneath the Surface Advisory Group and will receive no compensation from the grant for hosting the town hall. I look forward to having a great conversation with you. So again, to register, go to whro.org/events and sign up. A few weeks ago, about 8:30 in the morning, I received a call from today's guest. We talked for about 15 minutes, and it was one of the most engaging conversations I've had in quite a while. Our guest is author and autism advocate Dana Young-Askew. During our conversation, she told me about her son Drayden and about how passionate she is to provide help and hope to parents of children on the spectrum, particularly African American parents who don't know the symptoms, why their child is treated differently, or where to go to get the right help. It's a serious subject, and I'm so glad that she's here joining me today. How you doing, Dana?
Hi, how are you? Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor.
Oh, I am so glad that you reached out and that we're able to have this conversation. So I want to start by saying, okay, first of all, you have 5 children, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. And is Drayden your youngest?
Yes, Drayden's my youngest.
Okay, so Drayden is the baby. So when did you first notice that something was different? You know, you had 4 children before them. You knew about developmental milestones. When did you notice something was different?
So I have 2 sets of twins that are 11 months apart.
Okay.
So it was very easy for me to have that point of reference because I had 4 kids essentially in less than a year. So wow. I knew it was very fresh to me what those milestones should be, what it was looking like. And I knew there was give and take, right? 2 to 3 months, someone might do something a little faster or a little slower. But Drayden definitely was not hitting those milestones. And so my husband and I sort of bounced it off of each other. At first we were, is something going on? No, nothing's going on. And we sort of kept quiet. But I think internally we both knew that something was a little bit different with Drayden.
So what was he doing or not doing at that time?
So Drayden, he developed a lot slower than the other kids. Drayden was not walking. He was 9 months and he still wasn't crawling. He didn't walk until he was about, I would say, 14 months or so. And that's with the help of therapy. He wouldn't, if I made a silly face or did a peekaboo, there was no reaction from Drayden. Drayden would sort of just look at me, and he always had sort of a seriousness about himself. He was also very calm. I really don't remember him crying too much. I mean, that's either if he was startled or if he was hungry or what. He just really didn't have that need. He did a lot of self-soothing. So when he was sort of irritable or upset or with a cold, he wouldn't really cry out or reach out for us. He would sort of self-soothe himself. And so those are the main things, was really he wasn't making any facial expressions. He wasn't laughing. He wasn't startled either. If we did like peekaboo, he wasn't really startled. So that lack of expression, his ability to sort of like track our finger, if we were moving our finger around his face, and just really with him, he wasn't eating solids. He would have trouble sort of swallowing, and he was sort of coughing and choking when we were trying to give him things. And then along with his walking and crawling was the immediate red flags for us.
So what did you went to your doctor, your pediatrician, to say, hey, something's going on? What happened?
So we did. We went to the pediatrician, and unfortunately we were turned around several times. They were, oh, Mom, he's just growing different, or we can't compare. And my instinct just knew something really wasn't right. We needed to get some type of services. So after bringing him back several times, I finally, let them know, hey, I need help. I need some type of services. And so then the pediatrician had given me the number to in-home services called early intervention, which is a social service-based program where therapists will come in your home, whether they're speech therapists, occupational therapists, physical therapists. They'll come into your home. They'll assess your child. They cannot give a diagnosis, but they do keep a good documentation trail of what they see and their experience in the field. And so that weighed a lot of weight when I went back again to say, hey, we've been doing this for 3 months. He's still not progressing. This is what we're seeing. Now we have professionals who have charted and are also seeing what we're seeing.
So at that point, you still had not gotten a diagnosis that he had ASD.
No, I did not. It was very hard. They kept, sending me home and pushing off. And to the point where I had a care team that came in. They were serious. And one put me to the side. She said, I can't diagnose. I can't say, she said, but this is a printout of, signs or symptoms or characteristics of someone with ASD. Look at these. If you feel like, Drayden has these, talk to your doctor. So I made the appointment with my pediatrician again. He said, well, I don't really believe so, but let's get you into the developmental pediatric, right? Which is a referral-based service. And so we called over there, and that was a 6-month wait before we could even get in there.
So why do you think that there was such pushback against your instincts? And you also had the backup of the professionals, who had come in with the speech therapy and so forth. Why do you think there was such a reluctance still on the part of the doctors to say, let's test for ASD. Let's figure out if this is what it is.
I think two things. The two major things that come to my mind are all professionals are not have knowledge of autism spectrum disorder.
Okay.
And they may not feel comfortable diagnosing. And I think that also the second thing is there is an image of what autism looks like to most people, right?
Which is what? What is that image?
And I think when people think of autism, they think of, maybe a heavier set, white boy rocking back and forth with headphones on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is people's reference point to autism. And because Drayden did not look like that, they didn't think it was autism.
So did they wind up sending you to a specialist, or how did you finally get the actual diagnosis?
So they did send me to a specialist that had a 6-month wait.
Wow.
For me, just really researching and finding out information, I was able to call over, and I'm in Virginia Beach, but I was able to call over to Hampton, and they had an opening that was sooner.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that because I want people to understand it is a lot when you're trying to navigate these systems because, lucky for me, I had private care insurance, which allowed me a lot of flexibility. I had transportation where I'm able to drive 40 minutes away from where I live to get services. And I also had a job that allows me paid time off to take that time out of the middle of the day, 11:30 appointment, to take him to treatment.
Wow. So there's a lot to it. What was going on emotionally in terms of the rest of your family while you all were trying to figure out, okay, we've got our youngest son, there's something going on. We don't know what that is right now. So you're still trying to figure that out. What's happening with the rest of the family?
So my husband was prepared. He actually was, his mind state was, whatever we have to do to keep him going forward, let's just keep going with that. That was his mind state. Mine was hearing what my husband was saying, but feeling conflicted because as a parent, I'm coming to a professional with concerns, and the professional is telling me that I'm wrong, not really trying to hear me out. So internally, that really did something to me to not feel validated, seen, and heard. It really brought a lot of feelings of confliction for me.
Mm-hmm.
And my oldest son was around 7. And so he was really trying to wrap his head around everything. And then my younger kids, they were all, 1 or 2 years old. So they really have no other reference point besides knowing that Drayden just has always been autistic.
Ben Drayden, right. Right. So, and I would imagine also, well, first of all, let's go back to, do we know what causes autism? What, where it comes from? What did they tell you about that?
So there's no definite study. There's a lot of different beliefs. Some people believe immunizations cause it. Some people believe it's hereditary. Some people believe that it's environmental. But there's no direct, like, this is what it is. This is the gene that it carries. Right. This will cause autism. There's nothing concrete. And so for a while, just like a lot of parents, when I got the diagnosis, I was like, did I eat something? Did I do something? Was there something that I did that brought this diagnosis upon? So there was a lot of guilt and shame in the beginning. And my husband had to tell me, we're spending too much time about what could have, what may have happened instead of focusing on what we can do now, because this is the current circumstance.
Yeah, this is the reality. But it's still hard to get past that. What did you do for yourself to come to grips with the feelings of guilt and so forth? Because as mothers, we take that on, when something happens to our children.
Yeah, so initially, I can admit I didn't take good care of myself. I was on autopilot. It was a very foggy time for me because I was moving in uncharted territory. I didn't have the support of, the doctors and the people behind me, but I did have the workers that were coming in home that were sort of supportive, to the extent they could be, right, without hurting their own job.
Right.
And so it was really at that moment, I really feel like it was like fight or flight. And that was just this maternal instinct. Like, I know he needs this. I need to keep going to give him the best quality of life. Mm-hmm. And I'm also a researcher by nature. So I did a lot of reading. There wasn't a lot of literature on it back then, but I did a lot of reading. I did a lot of studying as well.
So how old was Drayden when you finally got the diagnosis that it was ASD?
So Drayden was about 25 months. He was just a little over 2. In Virginia, with my insurance, they don't diagnose until 2 years old. So I was right there at the door when he had. But I do want to preface that with, there's a lot of privilege that I stand on to be able to do that, because most Black children that get diagnosed are diagnosed 3 to 5 years later than their peers.
Right. And the longer it takes to diagnose is what's the correlation to intervention and prevention and or not even prevention, but intervention and working with the person?
So early intervention is key. The earlier that professionals can get in there, see what services that child needs, get your child that services, work with the family, build a care plan is key. And that is all I kept reading. There wasn't a lot of studies, but that was the main thing I kept reading. And so that's really what my push was. I knew that the earlier that I was able to get him services, the earlier one, or anyone is able to get services, it is so much more beneficial for them because they're able, like they say, it's easier to start a good habit than to try to change a bad habit.
Absolutely.
So they were able to come in there and teach him ways of, if he can't vocalize with words, how another way we can talk, right? So we use like these little flashcards. He wasn't able to talk vocally of what he needed, but he was able to point to the flashcard that he needed. And that saved us a lot with the meltdowns because it was a lot of times that child is frustrated because they can't explain what they need. The parents frustrated because they want to provide what their child needs or wants, but they're that communication barrier. And so the earlier that we can get into homes, the earlier that we can get into early intervention is so much better because by then we're also helping out that family system, right? Because at a certain point, we've exhausted everything we know.
Yeah.
And that is why it's so key to have medical professionals in the home or alongside you because we're really good at being mom and dad, but sometimes we need to just be mom and dad and allow the doctors and therapists to do their job.
Yeah, to take care of them. 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240 are the numbers to call to join our conversation. Do you have a child that is on the spectrum that has autism? And how was your journey in terms of trying to navigate the health system, navigate your societal system in terms of attitudes and stigmas? We'd love to hear from you. 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Let me ask you this, Dana. Beyond your immediate family, what kind of support or lack of support, whichever way it was, did you receive from other family members and friends? I mean, were people supportive of you, or were they just saying, "Oh, Dana, just calm down. You got all these children, and he's going to be fine"?
So I feel like that's a loaded question. I think when I look back, it was support. Now from a place of healing. When I was in it, it didn't feel like support. And I say that to say because I've learned people don't want other people that they love to feel sad or uncomfortable. And that makes them uncomfortable. So a lot of times people will say or token phrases because they're trying to comfort you or they don't want you sad or they have hope or they want you to just keep going. And they don't realize, or people have not realized, sometimes it's okay to be sad. Sometimes it's okay not to have the answers and to sit with someone in that uncomfortableness. I got a lot of sayings of, well, Drayden's just really calm. He's not crying because, you have so many other kids and he's just a blessing. He's quiet. Or, oh, he'll do it in his time. Or, cliche, oh, he's just a little bit touched or he's a little bit slow. Or it was things like, well, just give him time or God know what you needed. You needed an easy child. So with all these cliche things, and in those times, it felt like people weren't hearing me. But now stepping back, I think people didn't know what to do and they didn't know what to say. And they really tried in their best way to be there for me.
Yeah. But in the Black community as a whole, in your research and in your advocacy work, what is the attitude when they come across someone who has autism?
So a lot of times what we run into our community is people are reluctant to tell their family because when they have tried to tell their family, they get the same things that I got. Oh, they're just touched. Oh, cousin so-and-so is just a little bit slow. They're reluctant to use quote unquote labels on their child because they feel like we have so much to already overcome and go through. To add another label is just another hurdle for that child.
Right. So you wound up Oh, go ahead.
No. And I was just going to say also, too, within our community, we've so long had what happens in this house stays in our house. And there's been so many cases where I have found out where, someone's got a diagnosis and they went to tell their mom or they went to tell auntie and they said, oh, well, your brother or your cousin got one of those diagnoses too, but, we just prayed it away.
Yeah.
And so it's so layered within our community, right?
Absolutely. 440-2665, 1-800-940-2240. Jupiter joins us from Norfolk. Hi, Jupiter. You're on the air.
Hi. Thank you for taking my call.
Uh-huh.
I'm 29 years old, and I was just diagnosed with ASD. And I hold a lot of anger towards the healthcare system because we know that medical racism is so blatant, but so is medical sexism. And because I don't fit the characteristics of autism based on white cisgendered boys, it took me 29 years to be diagnosed. So I'm really, really angry. This is really new, but I think I just kind of want your listeners to know that ASD looks different. Like when we say it's a spectrum, it's a really big spectrum. Like I own my own business and I have a master's degree, but I'm successful, but there's, I don't know. I don't really know what else to say. But
Jupiter,
the spectrum,
how has it changed your life? Knowing, first of all, what did you know something was going on and you couldn't get the kind of diagnosis that you were looking for, or the right diagnosis, I guess I should say. And how does knowing now make a difference in your life?
So I think that on some level, I've always known. When I was a kid, like even in high school and middle school, I would hang out in the classrooms where the autistic children were taught because I wanted to help them the best way that I could. And now that I know that I have autism, it doesn't necessarily change my outlook on the world. I think it just, a lot of puzzle pieces have fit into place. Like, it makes sense now that when I hear people eat, I kind of shut down. Or when things are too loud, I shut down.
I see. Okay. Thank you for sharing your story, Jupiter. We appreciate it. And take care of yourself.
Thank you. Have a great day.
All right. You too. So, Dana, she's 29 and just finding out.
Yeah.
That's...
And you know what? Oh, excuse me.
No. Go ahead.
No, and I wanted to say to Jupiter, first, thank you for coming here and sharing. I think there's something so beautiful about Black autistic voices, especially as you get older, because there's a perspective as a mother that I really respect in that lived life experience. But what I want to say is there's such a distinct delay in our kids getting diagnoses. We are often misdiagnosed, we are often underdiagnosed, and we're often given our diagnosis so much later. And when I talk about those early interventions, I think about how it would have affected Jupiter in her existence and how much it would have validated, because a lot of times we go through these journeys and it's an internal struggle. We may be thinking it's us. Mm-hmm. And if she would have just had that piece of identity, and I love also how Jupiter said it's the spectrum, and I think people forget that. Autism, like I said, there's such an image of what autism looks like that if you don't look like that, people don't even consider autism.
Dana, it sounds like it costs a lot of money. In terms of the doctors and the specialists and the therapists and so forth. What does someone do who does not have that kind of money? Is there support out there? Are there resources to help families that may not, as you said, your words, you speak from a place of privilege because you were able to negotiate a lot of that. But there are people out there who children don't have those resources. Where do they go?
So I always recommend people, if they don't qualify for Medicaid or if they don't have Medicaid, Medicaid is an option. There is a lot of red tape with Medicaid. Who will take it? How long the wait lists are? But that's an option. And also, ODU has a program. They have a program themselves with young professionals who are studying to become working as developmental pediatric doctors themselves. And so they have a program set up themselves. So I often tell people to call down there and express, hey, I think my child may be autistic. Is there any services, support services? Because a lot of times they need those type of case studies themselves in order for them to finish out their degree.
Okay.
CHKD also has a program as well where they will work with you on a sliding scale.
So there are resources available. Yeah.
Yes, it's not cheap, and it is very time consuming. I do want people to know that. So that is something you have to know going forward. You have to be able to withstand, it's definitely not, a short sprint. It's a marathon. But keep in there and stay persistent, because that diagnosis is going to be the key to getting services. I tell people a long time, like my parents are like, well, he doesn't need the label. And I said, it's not necessarily about the label. It's more if he has an interaction with the EMT and he's having a meltdown and and if I say, oh, he's just a little bit touched, that's not going to ring the same. If I say he has a disability, he is autistic, that is something that's going to register for them. When you go to school, there's certain legal privileges that you have when you have this diagnosis that will help with being suspended, help being held back, getting those type of services. There's certain medical services, therapies, long-term care for when, we outlive our children. It's the fact we don't outlive our children. There's certain long-term care that comes with having these diagnoses. So I know that it sounds daunting, or we may not want to put the label on our child, but I tell people I'd rather have a label than the wrong label.
Yeah, absolutely. And to protect them. If you're just joining us, we're talking about advocating for children, particularly African-American children who have ASD, autistic spectrum disorder, with author and advocate Dana Young-Askew. She wrote the book, Come Meet Drayden, and we're going to talk about that book in just a moment. 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240 are the numbers to call to join our conversation. We'd love to hear your story. If you are dealing with a child with autism and you are looking for additional resources, give us a call, 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Sarah joins us from Virginia Beach. Hi, Sarah. You're on the air.
Hi, Barbara. Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
I'm a physical therapist and have worked in the Birth to 3 program for many years. And I just wanted to commend your guest today because she's such an outstanding mom and has advocated so well for her child. It can be very daunting for parents. 2 points I wanted to make. One is that there's a federal mandate that allows for children with disabilities with delays to receive PT, OT, and speech therapy services in the home. That's county by county, and it is federally funded. So there is support out there, even if the insurance doesn't cover it. So people should check with their counties regarding that. The other thing is I just wanted to follow up on the comment about vaccines, because I've had many parents who are concerned about vaccines and autism, and that's basically been ruled out. Scientifically, there is no evidence that correlates vaccines with autism. People are still hesitant. They can spread out the vaccines for their children, but I would hate to see parents, not getting their children vaccines because of their concern about autism. There is no scientific backup for that. It's been ruled out.
Okay. Thank you, Sarah, for that information. We appreciate that phone call. Dana, you want to respond?
Yeah. Excuse me. Yeah, Sarah. First of all, thank you for being in that early intervention program. I'm in Virginia Beach, and that was a lifesaver to me. And you have so much reach when you're in that program. So I just encourage you and your colleagues to keep being there for parents. When they may not know what's going on or what to expect, just hold their hand and sort of walk them along the journey, because we really need that support. We need to feel seen and validated. That paperwork that you guys keep is so helpful to us. I know you guys aren't allowed to give diagnoses yourself, but just continue to be that watchful eye and continue to help educate and go in these homes, just being culturally confident and really understanding and accepting of those homes you walk into. So thanks for all you do. We appreciate you.
So let's talk about Come Meet Drayden. What made you write a book about your son? And from the perspective of his siblings, not your perspective.
Yes. So first, there's a quote by Miss Toni Morrison that says, if there's a book that you want to read and it's not written, write it. And so when Drayden first got diagnosed with autism, my oldest son was around 7, and I'm a firm believer in literature. So I was looking for books to sort of help him learn. And there was only, I would say, about 10 books. And then about 3 had characters of color. And that bothered me for so long. And it just stayed with me. So during when COVID first happened and everyone was sent home, I had a lot more time on my hands. And my counselor was saying, well, this is time, use this time wisely. Let's work on some of your bucket list things. And I told him, about the quote in the book. And he, they said, just start. And so the book was originally supposed to be like a self-help book for parents or a guidance of what I learned. And I got stuck and I didn't know where to go with the book. And so I asked the siblings, I said, if your friend had a brother with autism, what would you tell them that you learned? And in that moment, my kids just started spitting out ideas and facts and things that they learned. And so instantly that book turned from a self-help book to a book for them. Wow. And I really wrote it to validate their journey, right? To validate their experience, to amplify their voice, to have them be seen as the characters on the book. And so that's originally how it started. And I just went through the process, met an amazing illustrator who believed in it, a young, Black illustrator. He was phenomenal. He was like, let's do it. He completely surprised me because the cover of the book is actually the 5 kids on the cover is images of my 5 children, which is really special to me. I believe that representation is important and also that ability to see yourself reflected in everyday life.
Sure.
So that's really how it started and why it started.
Where can people find the book, Dana?
The book is actually available here locally in the Hampton Roads area at Barnes & Noble in store, and then it's also online as well at Barnes & Noble.
So tell us what is a typical day for the siblings with Drayden, and how do your other children balance their lives and also continue to help Drayden to grow and mature too?
Yeah, so they have such a unique bond with Drayden. I always say if you want to know how to treat a child with a disability, watch how the sibling treats them, because they hold Drayden equally amount of accountable for his actions, but they also know when to give him grace. And so sometimes I find myself, babying him or over mothering him. The kids are like, Mom, he knows how to do this, or he can do this part, or he knows how. And so I love the fact that they still see him as a brother, but they also are so aware of how he is developing different, and they're protective of that part, but they also give him enough space to grow.
That's great. That is great. As a matter of fact, I think we have someone who has read the book. Shannon joins us from Chesapeake. Hi, Shannon. You're on the air.
Hi. How are you guys? Hi, Dana.
Good.
It's Shannon Wells.
Oh, hi. How are you? Thank you for calling in.
Thank you so much for having me. I listen to your show all the time.
Thank you.
And when I heard who your special guest was going to be, I made it a point to call in. Dana is amazing. We recently met in person at an autism summit, and I value her book. I've read it to many children, including my own son who has autism, and I just wanted to call and say hello.
Oh, that is so sweet. Thank you, Shannon, for the call. So has your journey, well, first of all, let me ask, are you African American, Shannon?
I am actually not.
Okay.
However, my journey was challenging in its own ways that I was myself a special education teacher, and I knew there was some things that were different with my second son. I just felt like he navigated the world in a different way, and I was more than happy to help accommodate. And when he began attending kindergarten at the school I taught at, his kindergarten teacher had a very awkward conversation with me and had to inform me that I was, essentially the shoemaker whose child had no shoes. And I missed it. That was really hard for me. I know Dana talked about, the emotions that you go through as a parent. And it was hard for me professionally as well, because I was looked to as someone that was, very good at what I did. And when I missed my own son, it kind of threw me for a loop. And I actually left public teaching and started up something very different because I just needed to change the world instead of changing my son.
Yeah. Now, I'm curious, when you were teaching, did you notice a difference in maybe the amount of help or the type of help your minority students may have received versus other students in the class?
Honestly, I would like to say that when the kids were in my care and the schools that I taught at, we were very fair. We were very balanced. We made sure that all of our students, regardless of color or, anything, we really tried to fight for the services that they needed. But we did see a struggle. We did see parents that didn't have, like Dana was saying, the resources. They didn't have reliable transportation to get to the therapy appointments. Insurance was often a problem. We had parents that were working multiple jobs. And you basically have to take what you can get when you're offered these very hard to get developmental appointments and therapy sessions. Yeah. And if you don't have the means, and honestly, it was across the board. I saw it. I definitely, my heart goes out to Dana and minority groups. I know that they definitely are at a disadvantage on many occasions. Mm-hmm. And it breaks my heart, honestly. But we really tried our best to provide a fair, set of resources for parents that were looking for help. Like I said, I myself was a special ed teacher, and I was lost. So if I was lost, I can see how so many other families out there wouldn't even know where to begin. And thanks to parents like Dana and her husband and her amazing family, she has helped to build a community especially within, the African American community in our area. Mm-hmm. But not just that. Her book touches families. And I couldn't help but reach out and just thank her for the gift that she has given, not just to families that are challenged by autism, but to all families that are challenged, because I feel like everyone at this point is sort of challenged in their own unique way. Sure. So I just wanted to call and say thank you to Dana.
Thank you, Shannon, for the call. I appreciate that. Dana, you want to respond?
Yeah, and she hit on so many points that are factors that really touch our community. But Shannon's out here doing good work. I appreciate everything you're doing with our sensory farm and how inclusive and how much you really educate yourself. You ask good questions and you're really inclusive. And so that's really so much appreciated. Thank you so much for calling. Yeah. I love that you listen.
Dana, so let me ask you this. What about the number of health care workers and doctors and researchers and so forth? Are there a lot that are culturally competent in terms of being able to really hone in on the specific needs of minority students in particular, or children in particular?
There is a huge lack of cultural competence. And I get very defensive. I get very emotional about it because it's already hard for us, right? Asking for help, trying to do something different, getting a diagnosis, and then they're met with these extra barriers, right? There's nothing like a family say, hey, I called, I did all I was supposed to do, and now, someone's called CPS. They think that I'm neglecting or abusing my child. Because things look different. And that's why I say cultural competence is so huge, because what I take as a staple in my household, someone that is not used to it may take as punishment, or they may take as unnecessary force. But, in my household, there's certain things that just aren't going to happen. Even with, I'll use the example, Drayden is autistic and he has meltdowns, but he's not throwing furniture in my house. And I had one therapist that came in and said, well, Mom, just let him throw it so he can get his anger out. No, ma'am, not in here. Now, we can work on other strategies. We can work on other ways. And she took that as me resisting therapeutic information or resources. And it wasn't a resistance. It was just in different households, certain things may be more acceptable. For example, when you come in my house, you take your shoes off. The therapist said, well, my feet are cold. Ma'am, I will buy you socks. You're not walking around with shoes in my house. I've had it where they come over and they try to teach Drayden daily life skills. And And Drayden is fairly fair complected, I will say that, but he's still Black. And they'll bring over, a white doll baby with a wide bristle, brush.
Yeah.
And I have to remind them, ma'am, you're supposed to be teaching him life skills. He's never going to use that brush on his hair. Yeah. I said, so we need to make sure you're culturally confident. He needs, oil spray. He needs, his wave grease. He needs a brush for his type of hair, because you're teaching him a skill on this baby doll that looks nothing like him, that has hair nothing like him, that he will never use. I've had the same thing with food. They'll come in, they want him to eat more, try new things. And I had one therapist who brought hummus. And that's all fine and good. I'm good. I'm okay with him experiencing other foods. But I said, ma'am, you need to bring things that are going to smell and look like things he's going to eat here. Because I probably will not buy hummus for lunch. So he has to get used to the smells, the textures, and taste. So I think that's what I talk about when I talk about people being culturally confident, because then people get offended when they feel like you, quote unquote, have challenged them.
Yeah.
That's when they want to.
That example that you gave about the hair is just, it is mind blowing, because that is so much an example of what we talk about when we say people need to be culturally competent. Because you're right, Drayden will not comb his hair the way that a white person would comb their hair, as an example.
Yeah. It's one of those things, and it's small things that they don't realize. And you have to be teachable, right? You have to be in a place to be vulnerable, and you have to be like, oh, okay, I didn't realize. But what happens is people, they get offended. I went to school. I know this. I'm trained. You asked me to come here to help with your child. And so then it becomes a tug of war, right? Mm-hmm. And it's hard because, I want to tell people, open up your homes, let these people in. But we also have to make sure we're dealing with people who are culturally competent and who, even if you don't know, even if you haven't had that experience, you're willing to learn. Because when we start writing down, mom and dad are defiant, or they're refusing treatment, it's not a refusal. It's your inability to adapt to being culturally competent to the household you're in.
Right. And that goes to across the board for any household, in terms of understanding. It's not just African American. We got several calls and not a lot of time left in the show. So let me take a couple of calls. Catherine joins us from Hampton. Hi, Catherine. You're on the air.
Hey, good day, ladies. Such a wonderful program.
Thank you.
I was calling because there's so many things that some of us have said, things that just highlight bits and pieces of our journey with our little one who's 4. She has not been diagnosed for autism, but she has neurofibromatosis, the NF1, and autism are one of the things that she could potentially have. But Jupiter brought up one of the things that I think that we may be dealing with is the fact that they're not acknowledging the potential of some of the issues I've brought up over the years. What possibly being autism, and on top of that, my husband being resistant to the idea of her having autism. But a friend of mine who has 2 children with a severe case of autism, who also was a special ed teacher like Shannon was, she has been lighting a path for us, for me to help my daughter overcome challenges, because she's taking from her own experience for her children and telling me how to help my daughter. And I got to go back to the doctor, and I still get resistant to even consider it's an option of autism.
Okay, let's see if we can get Dana to give you some advice or some guidance. What do you think, Dana?
Yeah, so first I want to let you know that I hear you and I see what you're saying. You're not alone, and I'm sorry that's been your experience. What I will tell you is go to a different provider. Keep going to different providers. You have the right to go to a doctor where you feel seen and validated. The second thing I would say is keep paperwork. Have the school track it. If you have any babysitters, daycare, keep paperwork. Keep a paper trail of behaviors, things that you're seeing. Third, I would say find a community. Get connected to other caregivers that are going through similar experiences, because you're going to need that safe place to land. They're going to be able to direct you with other services or care providers that they know. I heard you say that you're in Hampton, so if you're willing to drive maybe over to this side, I know some professionals, if you want to connect after this, that I would love to put you in contact with.
Catherine, we'll put up a phone number or an email address for Dana and let you know that so that and we'll provide that on our website also. Or Dana, do you have an email address you want to give for her to reach out to you?
Yep, it's my first name, last name, Dana, DanaAskew @gmail.com. Dana Askew at Gmail.
Okay, Catherine, good luck to you. You know, Dana, she brought up a point also about the whole idea of her husband resisting the idea that perhaps her child has autism. I would imagine that that's a real strain for couples.
It is. It is. And I challenge people to look at it, not also resisting. I think from a male's perspective, and I can only speak from a Black male's perspective because my husband's Black, I think it's a protection mechanism. They know what they've been through. They know the experience their child is going to have to go through, and they sort of don't want to add anything else to that.
Yeah. Do you find that churches are helpful, or open to also being inclusive and being able to help families that find themselves with children with autism?
I think from my experience, what I would say is they're not knowledgeable about autism. So I think they want to help. I think they try to give the best advice that they know, but they are not knowledgeable, or they don't have that professional experience. So they really can only try to comfort you through things. But at that time, sometimes we need medical professionals, or we need, like I said, a community of people who's been there or who's walking along the same journey as us.
Okay, let's go to Danita in Newport News. Hi, Danita. You're on the air.
Good afternoon. Thank you for taking my call. I just wanted to share a little bit of my story. I have a 25-year-old daughter, and I knew when she was 2 or 3, having worked with children with disabilities, with child development resources on the peninsula, I knew she was autistic. But nobody 23 years ago would listen to me. And I had to, they kept coming up with different things. She's just quiet. And of course, girls and boys with autism kind of have different, it looks a little bit different between boys and girls. And so they were like, no, she's just quiet. She's just, silly, and everything was a different reason. It was not until she was 16 that I got an actual diagnosis of autism for her.
Wow.
And from that, I feel like I lost so much time between 2 and 16. The interventions that we could have received, all of those things that could have happened, we did not get. So I think it's really, really important for the advocating part. Also, I have several friends who have children. I said, you need to get your babies checked out because I believe they're autistic. And they did not until they got to school at 5, 6, 7. And the issue started coming out. And then they get the diagnosis, and they're like, I wish I had listened to you. And so when people say, you know what, something is going on with your baby, listen to them, because people who have autistic children know what those signs and those symptoms look like. You get it treated earlier. Those programs might take time, but a lot of times they might be at no cost to a parent. Get it through your school system. Just get your babies checked out if somebody say something doesn't seem right. I'm doing quotations normal, because none of us are quite normal, but something doesn't seem like it's going right with your baby. Get them checked out. Listen to parents of autistic kids and follow the directions so you can get that early intervention in and help your baby's needs.
Thank you so much for your call, Danita, and we wish you the best, and your daughter the best also. Dana, you want to respond?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for trailblazers like you. I know there was not a lot of resources when you were out here doing this thing. So I do a lot of what I do in honor of Drayden and also those who came before him. So I just hope that I'm able to leave the door a little bit more open for those who come behind us. So good luck, and thank you for all you do for the community.
All right, I'm going to try to get one more call in. We've only got about 3 minutes left, but Whitney joins us from Virginia Beach. Hi, Whitney. You're on the air. We need to make it a little quick.
Hi, good afternoon, ladies. I just wanted to say hello, and hello, beautiful Dana. As soon as I heard your name, I knew it was the mama with a voice. I am a behavior specialist. I just wanted to say wonderful job for spreading this awareness around the community. It's much needed. Everything that you said and empowered these parents that were calling in is absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely, moms that are listening, do not stop fighting for your children. Find other providers that are going to listen to you. Take documentation seriously. Keep a binder. Keep it all together. My son has ADHD. When assessments were getting done, you would ask the teachers at school, and they were like, oh, he's good. I'm not asking if he's good. That's not the question at hand. But a lot of people misconstrue that. So definitely keep all of your paperwork together. So good job. Wonderful topic. I did not know this radio show existed. I am a fan. I am a fan. I am hooked. So wonderful job, ladies.
Thank you so much, Whitney. And we're so sorry that it's taken you almost 11 years to find us, but that's okay. You found us, and that's what's important.
I happened to be home because of COVID. So it's a plus and it's been a con. But wonderful job, ladies, and you now have a big fan.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that. Okay, Dana, you get the last. We got 2 minutes left. What do you want to say to people as we kind of wrap this up? And how do we keep this conversation going?
I say to keep the conversation by keep having the conversation, right? Continue to have the conversation, be open to having the conversation. If you've already been down this journey, reach back, open that door, grab someone else's hand and pull them along. We all need support. We need each other. That intersectionality between race and disability looks so different. And so I just can encourage people to keep going and also just find your community. I have a support community. I try to do as much as I can in the community, but also feel free to reach out. If you weren't able to call, you couldn't call, or you're hearing this on replay, I will, my email is Dana Askew, DanaAskew @gmail. Let's chat. Let me help connect you to resources. They're out here. They're not as accessible for us, but, I'm committed to connecting us to all the resources because we as parents and caregivers need them and our children deserve them. So thank you so much for having me here today.
Oh, that is fantastic. And Dana, how old is Drayden now?
Drayden is 7.
Wow.
He is 7 years old. Yeah.
Is he in school and he's doing well?
He is. He's doing phenomenal. We have a group of teachers that's absolutely amazing. We have caregivers that love him. We have staff that love him. And so I'm so grateful, and I know that's a place of privilege to know that I have so many people around him that want the best for him, that care for him, that want to provide and see him succeed. I know that's not everyone else's story, so I'm just committed to helping everyone get their own care team together.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dana Askew. We really appreciate you being with us today. And thank you, audience, for spending an hour of your life with us. Do me a favor, share this show with someone who may be navigating healthcare and school systems trying to get help for their child with autism. Go to anotherviewradio.org and download the podcast. And our numbers are slowly but steadily rising in subscriptions for our eView newsletter. It's a once-a-week reminder of upcoming shows. So while you're on our site, go ahead and sign up, okay? Next week on Another View, it's the Another View Roundtable. Now, in case you missed it earlier, join us for our next upcoming Race Let's Talk About It Town Hall. It's on closing the education gap, and it is next Thursday, February the 10th at 6:30. It's virtual. It's open to everyone, and we have a stellar panel of experts that are going to help us to navigate to figure out how we can close this gap and make things more equitable for all of our students. So go to whro.org/events to register, and again, it is free and open to everyone. Our theme music is an original composition created especially for Another View by Jay Sennett. Lisa Godley is our show producer. Todd Washburn is our audio engineer, and Dr. Barry Graham answered our phones. I'm Barbara Ham Lee. So I stole this phrase from the president of the Less Freedom Ring Foundation, Ms. Connie Harshaw. She signs her emails with this phrase: stay positive, test negative. I love that. I concur. Stay safe, everyone, and let's get together again next Thursday at noon for Another View.
Support comes from Thomas Nelson Community College, now becoming Virginia Peninsula Community College, the first choice to start a bachelor's degree since tuition is 1/3 the cost of four-year schools. More at tncc.edu.
Support comes from Hampton Roads Community Foundation, carrying out your charitable wishes forever, whether it's helping shelter animals, feeding the homeless, enhancing the arts, or supporting students. Learn more at leaveabequest.org.